Fat Boys Week 5 always reminds us we're in the heart of the season. We're getting a chunk done. We actually are starting to see how things shape up, not just on the field, but on our field. So, not going to have a long intro here. Tons to talk about. NFL first, then our scores. It's usually around now that the Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were, kind of pop into my head. Because mainly, I mean, at this point, we're a third of the way through the fantasy regular season, so the league leaders might just actually end up being the league leaders in those categories. The sleeper that you keep waiting on to kind of pop off at some point in time, sure, they might be a second half comeback, or they might just be a bust. And I know a lot of us are making those decisions in our actual fantasy leagues, but in NFL, it's popped up in kind of the same way. This week, in week 5, most of the good games we saw coming, and most of the blowouts, again, we kind of saw coming. Looking at all the night games, each one presented a decent game. I mean, San Francisco, LA, but aside from actually maybe I wanted a few more fantasy points out of that one, everyone did at least something in that game that was supposed to do it, and it was a super entertaining game. I mean, the Bills-Pats was a bit of a surprise in terms of the outcome, I would say, but those games either go big blowout or nail-biter down to the end. Not the result that I think most of us thought we were going to get, but, you know, if the Bills are going to get one punch, the Pats are kind of the team that usually does it. Now, the Jacksonville KC is another one that, not the result we thought it, but we thought we were going to get. I don't think in most cases, at least. I know some people in elimination pools that got knocked out because of that one. 2 and 3 Chiefs, but yeah, the media is going to do what the media is normally going to do here. Probably blame Taylor, talk a little bit too much about the Chiefs, maybe miss the point that was actually the most Lawrence move of all time. Like, for those who've been following his career and waiting, he's supposed to be something great, gets them all the way down to the red zone, falls over twice, is only really not down by contact, because if you look at it, it kind of looks like they gave up on him, and then kind of falls into the end zone for a brilliant play. That's a pretty Jennifer Lawrence. We'll go Trevor Lawrence on this one. That's pretty indicative of what we've seen so far. Even some of the other games that gave us some entertainment. I mean, I have McBride in a keeper league, and so I've been following him for a little bit, and I've been forced to watch Arizona games. So every offseason, when everyone's saying this is going to be the Cardinals' year and they're going to make it, I'm always like, they're probably going to screw it up in some case. And this way, I mean, aside from DeMarcado trying to get his name in the headlines by doing something that someone did the week before and dropping it while celebrating, but maybe even more aggressively, you got Kyler, who almost got concussed because he wasn't paying attention and a snap hit him in the face. And I know you might think that's a rarity. If you watch the Cardinals, that happens 5 to 7 times a season. Easy, that he's not paying attention and the ball just kind of hits him. This one hitting him in the head and then him running off the field and pretending it was a foot injury was a little bit different, or I guess the foot might have been, but you know what I'm talking about. And the fact the mediocre or actually piss poor team comes back to beat them, I mean, that's so Cardinals at this point, right? Stat lines that kind of drew my attention as the most appropriate. I mean, best stat line of the week, Jamar Chase, 4 catches, 3 tackles. He was in on all of those assists for the interceptions. I guess that's about as good as he's really going to get in a year like this. But if you had him as a defensive player or in a defensive player league, I think you're taking the bonus points. How about probably the creepiest, and I don't want to make fun of it headline, but literally at the bottom of the screen at one point just said, Sanchez stabbed, arrested. I don't want to know more. I don't need to know more, but that seems a bit on the nose. Or how about Fields being 0-26 when an opponent scores 21 points or more on him? That seems about all the Fields we've ever known and may ever know. Sorry to those who have him as a starter. I know fantasy points, you're just hoping he starts each week, but even that might have its expiration date. And the last one is a little bit selfish. I mean, I don't always pump the teams I'm actually cheering for, and very rarely do I actually get to be proud of the teams I'm cheering for. I hope I didn't jinx them and that doesn't age horribly. But my Browns, I know their color means a lot of things to a lot of people, but did they really have to get pooped on like this? London, or Tottenham, but the UK games, number one, apologies, UK. The fact that you still like football is blowing my mind because we send you the worst teams. Minnesota has to go over, but at least they stay for 2 in a row so they get some continuity and feel better about it. Sure, Pittsburgh had to go there and back in a week, but then they got a bye week to rest. Not Cleveland. They get sent there, get sent back, and then play Pittsburgh, an actual rival. I mean, they're going to lose anyway. We don't need maybe we do need the excuses. We did just trade our opening day starting quarterback to a division rival to try and help their season. to be a Browns fan. Anywho, that's enough for football. Our fantasy leagues are starting to heat up, so let's turn it over to the leagues to see exactly how week 5 went down. Chaz and I were supposed to have a pretty tight race, and unfortunately for him, I mean, we were both in the green, but I was just a little bit more in the green. I was the number one scorer for the week. For him, just over predicted, and that might not sound as great, but if you look at his tight end, a 0 for Ertz, and Ertz has been sneaky decent to play in the first couple weeks, so that was a bit of a surprise. Waddle, this looks great as the first week without Hill. He was the running or wide receiver 4, but that was kind of it in terms of ringing the bell for you. Diggs obviously had a great performance, something you're going to be pretty happy with. Just shy, obviously, of the top 5. Our kickers and defenses weren't so far off. I'm going to talk about them later because only one person actually had a kicker in the top 5, and it was the kicker 1. Nobody else had anybody else in the top 5. For defenses, only one defense in the top 5 was started, but defense 4 was on my bench, which is why I'm talking about it. That was Indy, so mistake on my part. Obviously now dealing with some injuries, but McCaffrey was running back 6, Agbuka wide receiver 1, Dax quarterback 2. That was more than enough to beat up a 136. Not our highest of high scores, but it was the highest for week 5, so feeling pretty good about that. I was going to say our upset special of the week, but I guess technically Predicteds did say Ben was supposed to win. I'm just saying because it was our first loss for Waylon. Still maintains his number 1 because he put up a good fight. Had a couple running backs that rang the bell, 2 and 3 repeatedly. Repeatedly in order. You get it. Running backs 2 and 3. Jamar Chase finally did something as the wide receiver 2. So you would think in a week like that, he'd be laughing to the bank. But by 0.72-ish, with a running back 3 performance, that's about it in the top 5 performance. Pretty exceptional if you look about it. Everybody just chipped in here. Even Kelsey had a touchdown, so that's pretty rare, I would say. Both were dealing with bye and injury issues, so this was not a great start for anyone, although I hate to point it out, but on your bench, Waylon, that was the quarterback 5 in Baker Mayfield, and he would have made the difference. So unfortunately for you, no one's crying for you, buddy, because that was the first loss, and you're still our top dog. But Ben, huge win for you, top 4, 3 and 2, and you can say you're the first one to take him down. V, congrats on the pretty handily victory, although I would say there were some tense moments in this one if you were following along. Now, we didn't have a lot of people actually scoring in the top 5 of their position. Shaheed was the wide receiver 5. I mentioned kickers, so effectively our top kicker of the week, Houston. Here we go, Fairborn, congratulations. And then nobody else had a kicker in the top 5. That's San Fran, that's New Orleans, that's New England, and that's Tennessee. No one touched him. Unfortunately, though, the kicker was not enough, even with Stafford's performance. Monty's been up and down for you, but Etienne, you would have expected a little bit better. To be honest, it wasn't a massive stinker, and I would have thought in other cases that you definitely could have gotten the win. But Will says not this week. And once again, only the one in the top 5, but clearly just an overall team W. Arizona was one of the reasons why you got all those infection notices. So if you had a bunch on your Yahoo saying there was crazy stuff that happened with scoring, it was a rejudgment of the Arizona-Tennessee game. It popped Tennessee into the top 5 defensively, and Arizona obviously did okay, but it did cost a few things. Anyway, you can go and look it up if you really want to. If we look at their bench, everyone had a bit of an issue, but no one quite had this issue. Ouch, look at that kind of situation. So it's not like you had a lot of choices, but the one choice you had, I guess you did make the right call. So well done there, Horst. Hopefully for your team gets healthier so you can start your comeback. Will, 3 and 2, top 6. I mean, that's where you want to be. Currently, as it ended today, you'd be in the playoffs. In another super tight matchup, the other undefeated fell, so apparently just Waylon and Justin do whatever the other one's going to do and makes it kind of trendy. But while Waylon lost by less than a point, Justin, you lost by about 3.5, so I guess, I don't know, he still got you on that one. Now, crazy enough here, great waiver wire pickup. You got the tight end 5 in Waller, although if we look at your bench, you bench Jake. I mean, you got to play Jake against Jake, and he was the tight end too. He actually might have been the difference right there for you. Jake won for Jake by not playing against Jake. wasn't as clever as I thought when I actually said it. Jake, on your side, you did have the defense 4, so you had the other defense, like I mentioned. Sorry, I think I said 4, but I meant 2 in Indy. You had the defense 4, so the only other one and the only top 5 that was actually played. Another situation where we don't have a whole lot in the top 5, but we definitely have people scoring good decisions, except for the tight end. That's got to hurt. Jake could have beaten Jake. Justin, you robbed us of the moment of the year. Jake, top 3. Well done, buddy. I don't know how to talk about this one. I'm actually kind of concerned. This is now the second week in a row. I am going to send out feelers to Rathwell. Everyone, if you could do the same. I mean, I kind of want to play him first, but bye weeks, injuries, he hasn't touched his roster in 2 weeks. We've never really faced this before. Do I step in and start rosters? Talk to me, league. Let's figure this out. Mark, if you're there, I mean, if you're not answering messages, then you're not watching videos, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, B, at least you're over-predicted. I mean, if you really had a stinker and would have lost this one, we might have had to kick you out of the league, but fortunately for you, even with the touchdown that wasn't from your Arizona guy, you did have Mahomes who creeped in. He was the quarterback 4, and he is just kind of sneakily figuring things out. But like I said, I don't want to focus on this one too much because I mean, Mark had some people he could have put in or adds and drops, and you did have Fields who had, but Mahomes is the right call. I feel weird talking about this one. Mark, proof of life, buddy. We need to hear from you. Congrats, B. We still have our Ofer, little asterisk there, and we have 3 now tied for the top spot. Couple down, I mean, you got to be essentially over 500 to be in the playoffs right now, but we know with every week it changes drastically. Even looking at the week 6 matchups, we're going to see a couple potential, there we go, took a little second, some tight matchups. Maybe I shouldn't say anything to Mark till next week. I actually didn't know I played him. I will. I don't want to, but I will. We got a 1st and a 3rd. 8 and 9 are pretty close together. A couple playoff teams here. I mean, it's week 6. We're starting to make the run for the playoffs, so let's see what happens. As I said, heading into week 6, I do have the moral dilemma. I will do the high ground. I will reach out. Hopefully I get a hold and he can pay attention to football again. It's more fun if all 10 of us are in. We've never had to deal with this. I trust we won't again. I believe in Rothwell. For everybody else, bye weeks are upcoming. We got only 2 on the bye week this week, but we still have games in the UK. We have 2 Monday nighters again. Week 6, man. What can you say? Best of luck.